It's really a sincere pleasure for me, being from the great metropolitan area of Assumption Parish, Louisiana, to introduce our guest speaker today, Henry Anthony Politz, born May the 9th, 1932, in Down the Canal, Louisiana, a suburb of Napoleonville. It's been said out of my presence that Hap, as he used to be called, and Hank, as he's been called for many, many years, was young enough to be my son. I do, however, Hank, I do dispute that, okay? But we're talking about a man who has beaucoup accomplishments, and I think probably most of you have read about him, and a lot of you here are too young to remember him. But Hank matriculated up from law school after being an outstanding law graduate to the law firm of Booth, Jack, Lockett, and Lesage, if I got them right.
You got them wrong.
Got them wrong?
Lockett, Jack, Pleasant.
Pleasant and Lesage, you're right, Hank. I left out John Pleasant. I apologize for that. In 1959, he came to Shreveport. He's been given a lot of honors. He served as the Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for 10 years. He's a liberal Democrat. That's how he got on the bench to start with during the administration of Carter. And he came from a liberal part of the country. When it came to, handouts and state subsidies and all that, Napoleonville was on the top of the list. But he graduated with honors. He was in the Order of the Coif. He graduated as outstanding LSU graduate in 1959, came to Shreveport. I'm just going to read a couple of sentences that his law clerks said about him about the time I think he went on as Chief Judge. He says, "The practice of law, trial work, and young lawyer Politz proved to be an excellent match. While still in his 20s, he developed a reputation as one of Shreveport's top trial attorneys. He also became known as the lawyer who welcomed pro bono appointments, criminal and civil. According to the local clerk of court, he handled more pro bono assignments than any lawyer in Shreveport before or since." And even though this article was written a number of years ago, I'm sure that statement is still true today. When you consider that Hank had to work very hard as a young man, went into service, which was his opportunity to go to college, and came back and did what he did at LSU Law School, and incidentally, subsequently, he was honored as the LSU Law School Alumnus of the Year. I'm too old to remember which year it was, but I know I've got that right. Don't I have that right, Hank? Okay, got that right. And finally, I'd like to say they only gave me 2 minutes. How am I doing? Okay, I'm going to read this and I'm going to quit. This is a dedication by the Fifth Circuit to the Honorable Henry A. Politz. This was done, I think, last November. "We dedicate this issue of the Fifth Circuit Court Reporter to the court's raging Cajun, Henry A. Politz, who makes us all laugh with his raucous Cajun stories. Often with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, he challenges us at oral argument with incisive questions. He inspires us, leads us, helps us, encourages us, and is a great friend to the bar and to the many of us personally. Judge Politz, we cherish you. I say to you, Hank, I love you like a brother or a son, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to introduce you. God bless you, Napoleonville and Assumption Parish."
God bless America, to be introduced by David Klotz.
His daddy was the only male Jew in Napoleonville and was mayor for 24 years. I had to come to Shreveport to learn about religious and the other kinds of bigotry. We didn't have it in Napoleonville. All right, they've given me an assignment that's incredible to do, and I'm going to do it in the time allotted, so you can get legitimately and not feel like you're just a cheat, because you would be, because you fill out that paper. I'm going to give you a few minutes about professionalism and ethics. It's hard to separate the two because we didn't have that. We had ethics for all of the years, and in the last 3 years, the Supreme Court has decided we need to do some focusing on professionalism and that dimension of ethics, and I'll do that for you this morning. Professionalism, what is it? What is it? Is it a part of the general subject of ethics? Or is it the opposite, actually encompassing what we call ethics? Or are the two separate and distinct concepts? Whatever it is, it's relevant to that which we know as the practice of law, and it is relevant, indeed vital, to the success of the traditional lawyer and role in our society. I share with you my responses to these legitimate inquiries. Professionalism transcends ethics, the latter being what a lawyer must do to avoid the legal minefield where one's conduct may result in one losing the privileges of being a lawyer. I suggest that ethics incorporates what a lawyer must do to become and to remain one of those things we call a lawyer, attorney at law, counselor. Is it relevant? Professionalism. Is it vital to the continuing success of the lawyering role in our society? I entertain no doubts whatsoever that it is absolutely relevant and exceedingly critical in that endeavor which all of us who presume to call ourselves lawyer, whether in private or public practice, in academia or on the bench, must make an interested and vigorous part. I agree with the comments of the late Chief Justice Warren Burger to the American Law Institute in May of 1971, when he bemused that unfortunately some lawyers had been taught and had learned how to think but had not learned how to behave, and as a result were a menace and liability to the administration of justice. I applaud and echo his suggestion that a high level of civility by lawyers is vital, because lawyers, by their conduct and performance, are teachers every day, in every case, in every court, and our conduct is emulated. Unfortunately, our worst conduct is gathered up and repeated more readily and with more gusto than our exemplary conduct. A very ethical, very professional, very successful lawyer now serving in a significant judicial post with marked distinction recently suggested that professionalism might be defined as how a lawyer acted toward other lawyers. That obviously is a significant part, for civility between lawyers is an essential component of any meaningful definition of professionalism. Indeed, as one objectively views what must be recognized as a decline in the standing of the bar in recent years, one of the most prominent factors is excesses in the adversarial process, in large part involving, caused, or aggravated by a marked downslide in the level of civility in the practice of law. Where does one begin in reaching a meaningful and satisfactory answer to the conundrum as to what professionalism and how does one achieve or enhance it? Well, perhaps we might begin at the beginning. The first 10 letters, P-R-O-F-E-S-S-I-O-N. What is a profession? I suggest, there's seats, folks. You can come down inside of the bar here. We don't want anybody standing because this may go on to 4 o'clock. That'll scare your butt, wouldn't it?
Well, that's what I was afraid of.
I know, and you can't leave now. What is a profession? I suggest the most frequently accepted predicate for that which is called a profession is the concept of public service at its core and as its driving force. Financial consequences are material, but they are not the driving force. When finance is sometimes referred to as making money is the dominant factor, the operation more appropriately and more properly is called a business. The practice of law has always been deemed and viewed as a profession, not a business. Service to the client and to the administration of justice traditionally has been the primary aim and goal of lawyering. Of course, making a living for oneself and one's family is relevant, but it cannot be and should not be the be-all and end-all of the operation. I presume to suggest to you that much has happened to lawyering since I left law school 40-plus years ago. The lure of the almighty dollar, filthy lucre, as we used to refer to it, has been increasingly intense. Decisions on how to represent the client and the result sought to be achieved or succumbed to too often are made primarily on the basis of the financial best interest, not of the clients, but of the lawyer. In the litigation sphere, this impact, whether to file suit, whether to actively pursue discovery, and its length and breadth, the intensity in which quick and final resolution of the dispute is sought, amongst other lawyer-like activities, kind of faded away. Time was in my lifetime when attorneys were highly respected members of the community. Folks looked up to them, sought their advice, their guidance on legal, social, and civic issues in the community. One was proud to say that one was an attorney. A child or relative was proud to claim the attorney parent or kinfolk. A person took pride in claiming a lawyer as a friend. May we candidly make that assertion today? If not, why not? Does it have anything to do with the blurring or muting of our professionalism? Perhaps. Perhaps. How far have we moved from the position of having public service as our primary goal? How much have we grasped to our bosom as our guide, the chase of the almighty dollar? Can we move back closer to the old raison d'etre? Should we? I have been blessed or cursed, as some would suggest, in that I always see the glass half filled, not half empty. I see that as I look over the legal landscape and meditate about the loss of societal stature of our profession, I confess more than a little distress at the unethical behavior of some of our colleagues and the near endemic loss of civility between and among our colleagues, both in the administration of justice and as lawyers perform in civic, governmental, and other societal roles. Having said all of that, I see more than a few encouraging signs. I see an ever-increasing mobilization of lawyers individually and in organized groups to address the downturn in ethics and professional performances and to take active steps to repair and improve things. Across the state and nation, we see action in this area by lawyer groups, ranging from geographic bar associations, local, state, and national, and interest bar associations, such as plaintiff attorneys, defense attorneys, securities attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, minority attorneys, etc. Notably among their activities in recent years is one marked similarity. The adoption of a code, a resolution, a statement of policy by whatever name, a set of guidelines directed at declaring, when you strip to essentials, hold on enough. Henceforth, our membership shall conduct themselves in the practice of law in the following manner. And look what then follows. What typically follows is a clear expression that their lawyers shall act with a keener view of ethical requirements, and equally and more important, with a greater civility and an enhanced perspective of professionalism toward opposing counsel, the courts, clients, and the other participants in the administration of justice. A district bench in our circuit forcefully joined in that very thing. Of one thing I am certain: there's a new day coming, actually a return of a marvelous old day. We shall all have an opportunity to play a significant part in the reawakening. That's to get the goddamn points over there. Okay. I've been asked to tell you a little bit about lawyering here in Shreveport and the kind of things that we did starting back then and so forth, and I'm happy to do so. I came here in 1959, January of 1959. The day I graduated from law school, January 31st. I went to work on February 1 at Booth, Locker, Jack, Pleasant, and on that day, February 1, 1959, we added the Sage. Joe became a partner of the firm. Harry V. Booth, Leonard L. Lockett, with General Whitfield Jack, John R. Pleasant, and Joe LeSage. What were the things that were going on? Well, in the very early 60s, I went on the board of the then legal services operation. We had one lawyer and one secretary. We paid them next to nothing. It was a crime. That year, our lawyer had right at 2,000 cases. 2,000 clients who had a legal problem and came to see the lawyer in legal services in the courthouse up there on the 6th floor. And property made, space made available by the police jury. And so we got serious about doing something about that. And in the next couple of years, the lawyers, we came together and we tried to find what would be other sources of money. Could we get a little more money from the bar? Could we get a little more money from the local unit that raised money for things in the community? But fortunately, what came down most of all was that which was done by Kennedy and Johnson, the war on poverty. And so we quickly put together an application, written late at night in the library at Booth Locker. Bob Donovan and I and a couple of lawyers. And we wrote this application for funds from the war on poverty to use to establish and to expand, really, because it was established, this legal services operation in Caddo. And much to our great, not so much surprise, maybe shock, but delight, was we got a notice saying, well, we first inquired this guy who was a Yale graduate. He had no idea about the kind of things that were going on. But he came down here. He was set down by his folks to see what it was that we were trying to put together. And he had to be impressed by the need, because he went back. And we were notified that we had been approved for a grant from the War on Poverty. Come on in. He's got a chair down there in the front right here. You can't sneak out. See? Right there, man. Right by that federal judge over there. And they approved the Shreveport request. And they sent the money to the governor. And we got a call from Governor McKittrick's office. Said, we've got some monies from Washington with instructions that is to be used there in Caddo Parish for your legal services program. I said, really? How much you got? And it blew my mind. $51,000. Wow. You know? Man. So we quickly improved and expanded the program from one lawyer to 5. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but we 5. But golly mighty. And then you talk about expand the services and be able to take care of the needs. So that was done. That was taken care of. But as we looked, now we're into the late 60s. We've been fighting this for several years. And the reality was that, okay, now we've got services for the poor, but there was a big, strong, fat reality, and that was there were a whole lot of people who didn't qualify for those legal services, but who couldn't afford a lawyer. That's just the pure and simple of it. Lawyering costs money, and court costs, and lawyer fees, and that's what went with it. And so we got involved here in Shreveport in I don't know not quite sure what to call it, but a practice that we call prepaid legal. And we persuaded the American Bar Association and the American Bar Foundation that we'd like to put on a program here to see if there could be a provision of legal services, not to the poor where the government was putting it up, but to these folks in the middle class who couldn't really afford legal services, but it wouldn't be government funded, it would be their own funding if we could put it together with and answer some of the questions and some of the uncertainties. And the American Bar Association said, that sounds like something we ought to be doing. And they tapped Shreveport to put on a test program, a prepaid legal test program called the Shreveport Plan. And they put up the money, actually the American Bar Foundation put up the money, said, we'll take care of your expenses. And we talked to them about what that meant, and they told us. And so they said, but you got to raise some money locally. I said, well, we will. And we had to find a group. Well, we had a group very quickly put together. Local 229 of the International Workers Union, and Henry McQueen, and his brother-in-law. Name is escaping me right now. Do you remember Sock? Henry's brother-in-law. He was the president of the local. Johnny Zippel. Thank you, Ben. And we talked to them and said, oh, your people need legal services every day. McQueen told me, he said, I break the law every day. Practicing law. I practice law every day. They come to me and they say, well, what do I do about this, Mr. McQueen? Boy. So the local quickly came in. Then I said, you got to put some money up. And he said, we can handle it. We just got 5 cents additional in our contract with what's the name of that group that they work for? We just have done a new contract. We got 5 cents an hour. Come to us and we to use it for the benefit of the members. I said, can you put up 2 cents? And he said, yes. We would divert 2 cents into this program. And I told the ABA and the foundation, I said, that's enough. That's enough of a contribution by your people to show their involvement. Now let's see if this thing makes any sense and if it's a viable thing. And so the Shreveport Plan then went on for 3 years. And we provided the legal services for that group. There were about 500 or so, give or take, 525 members of the union. What with their dependents, around 2,000 people in the group that we served in the Shreveport Plan. One of the first stories that we learned, and that just got to us. The morning we had a meeting of the whole membership and provided them supper. I told Henry, we really got to do something to get them there. It's important. And he said, I'll take care of it. And he did. And he called a meeting, and he told his people that it was an important meeting. He was providing supper for them. But we needed to learn about what this legal program was going to be. Come on inside. But we've got chairs inside for folks like you. Right?
Can't put in our 2 cents worth here on.
Oh, I wish you would. 2 cents indeed. That's all we needed. That's all we had. We got that 2 cents. Remember, Annie? And we had a meeting, and we told them about the plan. And explained to them, and gave everybody a copy. We had printed it. I've got some copies still in that file. Copies of the plan, a little booklet. It wasn't near as big as this one I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And everybody got one. And the next morning, this was learned later. It was several weeks later. But it zinged me. The next morning, this elderly gentleman up toward Benton, who's a member of the union, and therefore a member of the plan, he had a guy come to his house, knock on the door, had a truck out there, and he told him, I've come to get your furniture. And he wanted the guy to help him load it. Why? He said, your nephew didn't pay that loan that he got that you signed for. I come to get the furniture. And he took the plan, Shreveport legal plan. And he said, I apologize, but my union has got this plan. We have a lawyer, and I need to talk to my lawyer. And I hate to put you off, but I need to go talk to my lawyer about this. And if you're supposed to get my furniture, because I signed for my nephew, and if he says so, then I will. But I need to talk to my lawyer. That was what they told us the other night when they told us about the plan. Please, if you have a legal question, talk to your lawyer. And he called the lawyer, who said, what? You tell that, and he used a technical term, to come talk to me. Don't you load your furniture, don't you do any such thing. And he said, and I didn't. And the man never came back. But we went on there and we had the plan. We did it for 3 years. And we were there at a meeting when the 3 years was up. The American Bar Foundation was putting up, and it wasn't a large amount of money they had to put up. It really wasn't. The 2 cents helped significantly toward it. It wasn't enough, but helped toward it. And the ABA Foundation put up the balance. And it was not that much money. And the plan worked. And we served a whole group of the large number of those people. Not all of them. Not all of them. Didn't come forward. And we had a meeting at the end of the 3-year period of the Shreveport test, the Shreveport plan, which now is being watched all around the country. Through the ABA, making it known, we've got this test going in Shreveport, where we have a group that do qualify for legal services, but are trying to put it together for themselves. And were watching what we were doing, and we were making full and open reports of everything that we were doing. Members of the lawyer members, we were on the board of that controlled the plan. And so when we finished, we had a meeting to tell them that it's over with. And to our surprise, might be too strong a word, but our delight, I mentioned earlier in another reference. You want to keep this plan, you've got to pay for it all yourself. And it's going to be at least a nickel or 6 cents per hour. And boy, there was not a voice in the room who wanted to let it go. And as we examined into it, the people who had used the plan certainly wanted to continue it. The ones who were equally or more vigorous about keeping the plan were those who had not yet used it. It gave them such a sense of security. That plan, incidentally, is continuing here. The Shreveport plan continues for Local 229 to today. Well, we went back and we reported all of this to the ABA and to the foundation. In the meantime, the American Bar Association had appointed a special committee to oversee this, and I served on it and continue to serve as an honorary member of it. Things started happening all over the country of people putting in plans similar to the Shreveport plan. It served as the guide of activities like this. 2 years ago, I went down, and 2 years ago, time goes by so darn fast now, maybe 3. But a couple of so years ago, they had a meeting in New Orleans of people who were from all over the country who were working with Shreveport plan type of operations all over the country. And they asked me to come and talk to them and give them some background. A little bit of what I just said now, and with a little more in the technical stuff. And when in the American Bar Association has a special unit that deals with this, and then they put a separate corporation out of it now to take care of it. I asked them if they had information on the number of people who were involved in the plans around the country. Said we've got what we believe to be a good, tight feel for it. And we've been checking, we knew this was we needed to have this information for this meeting. 20 million people. Wow. In the other stages, I was telling Ben about this the other night. In the other stages, we just were getting started. And we had finished the Shreveport plan. We were working with the idea that other peoples around the country could do it. And you do it with a union group, but it didn't have to be a union group. It could be an identifiable group. But it could also be just the marketplace. Somebody could sell this. And there were people who were interested in trying to do that. And a guy in Oklahoma said, I want to put together a corporation to do this. And would you please come on my board and I'll give you 25% of the stock. And I said, oh, golly, I said, let me meditate on that a little bit. And I'm on the ethics committee and for the state, and yeah, I think it's going to use my role as being active in the Shreveport plan, and then to sell. I can't do that. I can't do that. When I spoke to the group here, as I mentioned a couple of years or so ago, which is now well, you know, we're 15 so years in the program, at least that. He was there, and we're glad to see him, and we talked, and I said, did you form your corporation? Yes. And it worked, and he had asked for information along as he went along the way, and I'd send him stuff, as I sent to many people that asked for it. And I said, how are things going? He said, things are going well. Things are going well. And I said, fine. I said, and he told me how many people he had covered in different plans in different states. And he said, I just got to tell you this. But I think you ought to know it. And what's that? And what the stock is worth in the corporation. and he told me, like 21 million, and I don't own a quarter of it. I wasn't meant to be rich. Okay. Good, the timing's working good. That was some of the things we did, and then, you know, I also practiced a little bit of law, you know. And the Supreme Court put me on the ethics committee, and I spent 7 years on the ethics committee for lawyers in Louisiana, serving as champion. I was the first plaintiff lawyer ever to serve on the committee. And by the time I left it, there were four plaintiff lawyers. It surprised the hell out of folks that a plaintiff lawyer could be ethical. Wow, what is this? You know, they used to tee me off. Boy, I used to get so damn angry at that. They go, just defense counsel can be ethical? Come on, man. God almighty damn. Anyway. And then the Supreme Court asked me to serve on the Louisiana Judiciary Commission with the Ethics Commission for judges the last year or so before I got this fat job assignment with the feds. And it wasn't long after I got on, became a federal judge, that the Chief Justice, we didn't know all our background. So I said, he said, you got a long background in ethics, would you serve on the Ethics Committee for Federal Judges? And I said, of course, Chief, and I did that for for 7 years until I became chief judge and went on the judicial conference. At which point the chief asked me if I'd serve on the executive committee for the conference, and I did that until I stepped down as chief. So I had been doing different kind of things. Well, one of the things that we were doing was collecting wonderful legal stories. And Frank Murray and I toyed with the idea for several years, why don't we put these together, give people credit for the ones they told us. We had to clean them up. Yeah, we really did. That was the hardest work of all, clean. But we put them together in the book, and we decided that we would put all L's, so it's called Louisiana Law, Legends, and Laughs. And at the suggestion of Don Walter, I have to say that, I hadn't thought about it. We collected stories from lawyers and judges, and we put an index of contributors and the pages that the stories they gave us are on, right at the back. And if you don't see a name by it, it's Frank and I made it up. It's got a collection of some of the grandest stories of things that have happened in the courtroom with witnesses, with lawyers, with judges. Mercy. And you can't believe some of them. And we're now, the printer has just hit the market, and they're now available, and we have them available. And if you're interested in buying one, that can be handled, and you can talk with my people. They'll have them at they'll have them at lunch. We are just starting on the follow-up, because the consequence of the publication of this book, we're starting to get folks send us some more stories. Did you hear the story about Saul? Did you know what happened to me? What's that? So Frank and I are now gathering that, and we may well do, what do you call it when another book follows another book? They got a name for it? Sequel? Sequel? Louisiana Law, Legends, and Laughs sequel. Oh, we got all L's. Can you come up with a word that means sequel that starts with L? Oh. The other thing that I promised to deal with, and I got a few minutes to do it, is what was law like in Shreveport when I came up here from South Louisiana from Napoleonville, and the lawyers and so forth. 1956, I got out of service in 55, and I went, had a little bit more of college I had to get for a year, then I started law school in 56. But in 56, we had a gubernatorial election. Well, I always just loved politics, you know, gosh, there was so much fun in politics. God, and some of the really people you'd meet, boy, there was really some booger bears that you'd meet. But you'd meet some awfully nice people, too. And well, in 1956, we thought we'd get involved we were in college, we thought we'd get involved in the gubernatorial campaign. And amongst the various, we looked at the various candidates. And one just stood out for us. Not naive law students. That was a long running, but then the longs, they probably wasn't good people. We didn't think too much about it. But that was Mayor Morrison. And in those days, it was typical to have candidates run for governor and lieutenant governor kind of the team. And there was Mayor Morrison and Senator Barham. His son was going to law school, but Senator Barham was from Houston, from Ruston. He was chairman of the Senate, fine man. So the Morrison-Barham ticket, and the students got after that. I was a student coordinator, statewide coordinator student for Morrison-Barham, and I went to all the colleges and got people in all the colleges to come in, and I was pushing this lawyer down in Baton Rouge. We need some stationery. We need some stationery. You know, students from Morrison-Barham and a dress. Come on, man. And he said, okay. And so finally, how many more? We said, I forget how many thousand we asked for. And we were waiting for them. We didn't get them in time of the first primary. We got them Monday after the Saturday of the first primary. But in 1956, Uncle Earl whipped our ass in the first primary. And I had those boxes and boxes of students from Morrison-Barham. I used the backs of those to take notes all during law school. we had a rally. They had a rally. Uncle Earl had a rally in Baton Rouge, right around the corner from where our headquarters was, of the Morrison Barham campaign. And there on 3rd Street, where 3rd Street comes down close to the old state capitol, can you picture that in your mind? Set up there, and then Uncle Earl was giving away 50 baskets of food. I was going to go win one of those baskets, man. And that would have been wonderful, golly, boy. But I didn't. And so went there, and my job was to, well, what's a good word for it? I was to hassle the speakers for Uncle Earl. I was to go over there and, well, Hank, you can do that. I'm getting together, so bad. Okay, so I go over there, and who is the first speaker for Uncle Earl? Harry V. Booth. And he stepped up to the mic, and there he was, Mr. Harry, whom I came to love. Gosh, I don't have a great affection for anybody in our profession otherwise than Harry V. Booth. Little old skinny thing, and he didn't wear belts. He wore suspenders. The pants was a little, loose, and the suspenders. And he stepped up there, and he started talking. He says, I have never been a supporter of the Longs. And I later came to find out how he and Uncle Earl, Uncle Earl's brother, Senator Long, Mr. Harry and he had really had a falling out. Huey had filed a lawsuit. There had been multiple people apparently involved in getting injured. Mr. Harry had one, and Huey had one, and they filed federal lawsuits. Well, Huey's got poured out the boot. And he went to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit remanded it. In the meantime, he's going off to Washington as a senator. And he asked Mr. Harry if he would handle his lawsuit. And Mr. Harry said, sure, carry it along with mine. It's the same thing, it's just a question of adding the injuries to you. Yeah, sure. So Mr. Harry tried the case and prevailed. And the two cases that were consolidated. And it was affirmed on appeal, and they got the money. And when they got the money, Huey wanted a piece of Mr. Harry's fee. So what? Well, yeah. Put both the fees together because Mr. Harry had a lot better case and he had a lot bigger fee. Put both fees together and divided. I said, no, you take your fee on yours and I'll take the fee on mine. And he threatened Mr. Harry. Should never have done that. And boy, he just, come on. Just come on. He lived here in Shreveport, Huey Pilon lived here in Shreveport. Well, that aside. So then now his brother's running a few years later. And Mr. Harry stepped up there, and I didn't know who he was. And I'm looking up there, and he started talking. He said, I have not been a supporter of the Longs. I've never been a supporter of the Longs. Huey Pilon is a kind of the more I know of him, the less I like. What I said, they said, come and help his brother. I said, why? He said, well, if you look at the record, you know why. So I looked at the record. I read every page of the record. And he started that bit going through the record. And look at what Earl Long had done. And I found he'd done so-and-so. And I came to read some more of that record, and I found he did so-and-so. And I decided this is a man I can support. And I'm sitting there looking at this guy, and I'm supposed to be hassling him. And I ain't hassling nothing. He had me so mesmerized. I said, who is that son of a bitch? I said, that's Harry V. Booth. Who is Harry V. Booth? He's a lawyer up there in Shreveport. God damn. That man is, oh, golly, wow. So, well, a couple of years later, in the fall of 58, when I got to get a job. And I had an offer from a law firm there in Baton Rouge, and I had an offer from a law firm in Houston, and got an offer from Judge Wisdom's Rubin's firm in Baton Rouge, and an offer from one that's now having trouble because of Enron. I see one of my law clerks back there he ain't going to work for him. B&E. And the Supreme Court justice had offered me a clerkship, and I had an offer from a Lafayette firm, a defense firm, and I didn't know what quite to do. And so Mr. Dean Henry George McMahon, I know many of you know him. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. He called me one Saturday. I was working at a grocery store on Saturday. And he called me and said, go cleaned up and get your suit on and come on over here. I want you to meet a friend of mine who I went to law school with. And I said, yes, sir. So I went clean up and went over to Dean Mack's house, and he introduced me to Judge Pleasant and said, he's up there in the firm in Shreveport. You want to be a trial lawyer? Well, I don't know of any better trial firm in the state of Louisiana than for you to go and learn how to be a trial lawyer. And so I did. I came up here, and they said they'd pay my expenses, $50. It was $39 for the round trip ticket from Baton Rouge to Shreveport and back, and $5 for the cab, and they drove me back to the airport. So I made $5, man. Well, I really not. I had to pay $2 to get my car back out of the bank. So I just made $3. And I came up here and I met him, and we had lunch with him, and they talked. And I was impressed by him. Good gracious. Booth Lockett, Jack Pleasant, Sage, damn. And they're trial lawyers for sure. And Mr. Lockett asked me, boy, he called me boy. I was boy up until the time. I was chief judge of the Fifth Circuit. What you doing, boy? I said, well, I'm chief judge of the Fifth Circuit now. Big L was something else, boy. And the Big L said he took care of the money in the firm. And the Big L, he said to me, you got several offers, I was told by the dean. Yes, sir. What's your best offer? For a moment, I said, clerkship for the Supreme Court for a year. How much? And I said, I think it's $499.50. He said, we can beat that. 50 cents. I got $500, man. Boy, what a bunch. What Mr. Harry and Mr. Lockett and Whitfield Jack. Gee, well, Mr. Lockett was, they all were very, very busy, and I was the only associate. And they were keeping me running ragged, man. God damn, they were all trial lawyers. They got trials in civil and criminal and state and federal, and go do this and go do that, and you got to do it, and you run out of time. 18 hours a day, and a lot of them in the dark, and just doing that. So Mr. Lockett was worst of all. I'm seeing Troy back there smiling and sock. If he gave you something to do, he wanted you to do it right now. And so one time early on, I hadn't been here very long, he gave me this thing about a little intersection collision, and I got a copy of the police report, and it obviously was a minor thing. And I had other things. Mr. Jack was busily gone to trial and just Pleasant, and I was doing things that they were asking me to do. And he one morning, about 2 days after he gave me this assignment, my secretary said, Mr. Lockett, and I came in and said, Mr. Lockett, we're looking for you. Oh, damn. You want to know what you're doing on the Jones case? I hadn't done anything on it. And so in a few minutes, I heard the jingling of change. Mr. Lockett loved to jingle his change when he walked down the street, all the time jingling his change. I said, oh, damn. And so I said to my little Ruthie, she was married to a Baptist preacher, I said, Miss Ruth, not Miss Ruth, Miss Ruth is my now lady. Ruthie, tell Mr. Lockett I'm out. She couldn't lie. So Lockett comes into my office across the hall from theirs, and I just ducked behind my desk. And he glanced in there, and he couldn't see anything, and he said, where's Hank, Ruthie? And she said, he's not in his office? And he said, no. She said, well, he must have gone out. I said, as close as she could come to lying, man. And so, damn, the phone rings, and on the loudspeaker it said, Mr. Lockett, line 2, Dr. What was the name of that doctor that he saw all the time? Dr. Ship. And I'll get it in Hank's office. Well, I knew he didn't talk long on the phone to anybody. So I just ducked down behind my desk tight. I knew he was going to walk in and get the phone from on this side. And he did. Well, it's Dr. Ship, and that's one of the few people could keep Lockett on the phone very long. And so he had to exchange stuff, and then he said, well, just wait a minute. And he's walking around and said, oh, damn, He's coming around my desk. So I pushed myself up under the desk. And he sat in my chair. And he's talking to Dr. Shipp, and he looks down, and he sees me up under my desk. And he says, I thought you were out. And he gets up, finishes the conversation, and he walks out. And he goes downstairs because he's going to meet somebody for coffee. I said, oh, damn. So I crawled out from under my desk, and I said, I'm a gone goose. Well, I better go tell Mr. Harry. So I go across the hall, and Mr. Harry, Mr. Booth goes, and Mr. Harry, see you a minute? Yeah, come on, Hank. Mr. Harry, got to talk to you just a minute. What is it, Hank? Mr. Harry, Mr. Locker's going to come in here and tell you something, and it's going to sound kind of really bad. What's that, Hank? I said, well, Mr. Harry, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. But when Mr. Locker gives you something to do, he's so demanding. And I said, Hank, I said, you're just doing fine work for us. And I know how Leonard is. Leonard can be that way. And I said, I'm trying to keep bouncing. I'm trying to get the important stuff for you. I mean, he said, what is it? I said, well, I heard him coming. I knew he was going to ask me about a little case, and I hadn't done the checking yet. I've been doing this stuff for Mr. General Jack is in trial in federal court, and he needed so-and-so, and I've been doing that. And so when I heard him, I just ducked behind my desk. That's a good idea, Mr. Harry. But then he got a call, and he called along the PA system, and there was Dr. Shipp, and he said, I'll take it in Hank's office. And so I didn't know what else to do. I just pushed myself up under my desk. And he came in there, and he said, well, did he see? I said, he sat in my chair. And so, well, what did he say anything? He said, thought you were out. Did you say anything? Couldn't think of nothing to say. Okay. Have you gotten those pictures we have in that expropriating case out over in Arcadia? I said I got a photographer lined up, and I told him he's ready to take the pictures whenever I get over there. He said, take my car and go on over there. Get those pictures. Go out the back. Don't let Market see you. So I quickly called the photographer. I said, you meet me? Yes. Fine. And I go downstairs, and I go down. I don't take the elevator. I go downstairs, and I go out the back of we were in the Johnson building, to the back door, into the alley, and I sneak over to Mr. Harris' car, and I take off Arcadia and go over there and spend the day and meet the photographer, take the pictures for that expropriation case we had over there. And I come back and bring Mr. Harris' car that night. It was because it was late when I got back, 6 o'clock. So and I didn't know if I still had a job. So I brought the car, and he said, did you get the picture? I said, yes, sir, we did good. I think he did a good job. We'll have him in a couple of days. And I said, do I still have a job? And he said, Hank, he'll never mention it to you. Really? That's it. That's right. Well, he was absolutely right. He never would acknowledge that had happened. And what had happened was, he comes into Mr. Harris' office. I hadn't got out of the building good. Come back upstairs for having coffee, and he said, Harry, I got to talk to you about that boy, Hank. No, that boy Politz. He called me Politz his whole life. I got to talk to you about that boy Politz. What? Harry, the boy seemed to be smart. He seemed to be working hard and doing okay, but Harry, the boy does some strange things. Like what, Leonard? Harry, I went in there and I had to use his phone and talk to Shipp. And I looked, he was hiding up under his desk. Like that. And I said, well, did you say anything to it? Yeah, I said, I thought you were out. Did he say anything to you? No. Leonard, I sent Hank to Arcadia today to take those pictures and I expected it. Huh? Mr. Lockett was if there ever was a guy who was, what do you call it when you have everything? hypochondriac. Plus, with an H. And he had that little cut on him. He said, I told Ship that stuff he was giving me was making me hallucinate.